Hey, it's Barry Moll, still trying to get small business unstuck. I'm here today with John Lawson. John, you've been following the coronavirus, I would say even before day one. You knew it was going to be a pandemic, even before it was a pandemic.
Yeah, pretty much. I could say that. I mean, it was just moving so fast at the time.
Yeah.
And, just if we didn't get a hold on it, here's where we'd end up.
Well, I have to tell you, the unemployment numbers coming out of Washington were just staggering yesterday, right? So we have over 20 million people now unemployed, 15 million people in the last 3 weeks. And think about this. This is more than was in the Great Recession, right? So
Yeah.
we're already at that level, which is way up here.
Yeah. It's, and it just takes, this is a month. This has happened within a month. And the deal is it's like a freight train. If a freight train hits a wall, it'll
Right.
stop very quickly. But to get a freight train to go back up to 55 miles an hour takes a long time, you know?
Absolutely. I saw this graphic and I want to share this with you because this graphic just blew my mind yesterday. It's from the Washington Post. Can you see it there?
Yep.
So this basically says weekly initial claims really since 1967. So as you can see, initial claims go up and down, they go up and down. And you see this one line in the middle for the recession, how far it went up.
Wow.
And then you see for 2020 now, we're not even the same stadium. I mean, unemployment claims usually go from 0 to the 10-yard line, and now we're on the 50-yard line.
Yeah. And we'll recede, pretty quickly.
Right.
But I don't think we'll go back to the norm.
Right. Well, it has to recede because there's only so many people really in the United States that can work. I mean, I think we're at over 20 million. I mean, I got to believe we're going to get up to 30, at least 30 or 40 million. My question first is, much longer do you think this shutdown is going to last? We're here now on April the 10th. The only good news is April 15th has no meeting this year.
Right. Yay.
How long do you think this is going to last? The actual shelter-in-place shutdown.
Okay.
Because that depends on how quickly the economy comes back.
This is so hard to say. I'm going to say Easter. You know what? It's so hard to say because I do see that the administration is really on a fast track and they really want to, he really wants to get back to some sense of normalcy. And I mean, can you blame him? Who doesn't want this, right? My fear or my concern is that what normalcy looks like is really in the rearview mirror. And case in point is China right now. What are those L&M stores with the big department stores are open, or H&M, right? Are 80% of those stores are open. 79% decrease in foot traffic.
Right.
So the thought of, we're just going to get back is kind of hopeful, but I don't know if psychologically I'm ready to sit in a movie theater with the guy behind me going, it's going to freak everybody out, or at least I think it will.
It's like yelling bomb on an airplane, the nuclear popping, right?
Right.
It's interesting to me because, I personally believe here in Illinois, we're kind of going to be let out of the shutdown somewhere between May 15th and May 30th. But I don't think normalcy returns for another year and a half or until we have a vaccine. Vaccine, or you can test yourself easily at home and whether you're sick or you're not sick, right? But I think also all these pandemics usually, John, go 2 years, right? They usually come back sometime.
2 cycles, yeah.
Be easing. This is going to come back again. And Fauci said the other day, he doesn't know if people are ever going to shake hands again.
Yeah, well, I'm not, but psych, I'm teasing. But yeah, it's a lot. And I think there was somebody was sharing a story with me of the Spanish flu virus that it literally took like 3 years for them to get back to the sense of normalcy. And of course, if we look, like I said, in China, there's a lot of things that are going on, but a lot of people are just going to work, going grocery shopping, and coming home. They're still not over the thought of being infected by somebody they don't know. So it's
So what,
very, very weird.
what would your recommendation be if you were king, as they say?
Mm-hmm.
How would you open up the economy again? Because somewhere along the line, you got to do that. And I think it's confusing, right? The Great Depression, following the Spanish flu, it's 3 years. The Great Depression lasted 10 years. I believe we're entering into the depression of 2020 when you look at an economic standpoint. And whether it's a V shape or it's really, really flat, all depends on so many different factors, the vaccine, the self-test. How would you open up the economy if you were king?
Okay. We're going to get hate mail.
All right, that's all right.
Here comes the hate mail.
People have plenty of time on their hands. I get hate mail on Facebook all the time.
Okay. So honestly, the person in charge right now is probably one of the better people to have to make the economy move quickly. And the reason why it seems good, but on my other side it's kind of bad. The reason why, he'll do whatever it takes to make people feel good right now. So we will spend, we will push checks and do as much as we possibly can to throw money into the economy so it looks good. The problem with that, I think,
until by November the 6th.
by November the 6th, right,
Yeah.
right. But the problem with
election
that,
year.
yeah, on the backside, we're going to end up having to pay for it,
Right.
and it's going to make a bigger crater,
Right.
right? The other thing I think is we're going to rush to getting back to normal, and then we're going to have a second wave.
Right.
And that
Right.
second wave, like if you look right now, the stocks have been up for the last 2 or 3 days,
Right.
or 2 out of 3 days.
Right.
And it's almost like Bitcoin right now.
Right,
There's
exactly.
no basis for this economy to
Exactly.
be moving forward right now. And I think that's going to come back and crash on us at some point. So
it's legalized gambling.
it is totally legalized gambling, and it is based on what? Right now,
Right.
Speculation.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, but you are right. The happy days are here again. I think will be after we have a actual, vaccine. But I kind of feel like, we'll have a pretty good July 4th outside. I
Yeah.
just feel that way.
It was funny.
Then we'll go back inside.
Yeah, the governor of Illinois just said that people who are playing these big festivals in Chicago, because since it only gets warm here once a year, we're a big festival community. He says those probably aren't going to happen. We'll probably be outside. That's not going to happen. I think the recovery is based on a lot of functions. And I think the government, since it's an election year, will throw money at people. What do you think about the idea? Will we start an FDR type of New Deal, which employed 30% of the American population after the Great Depression to just get people back to work? They were building all sorts of things, or shoveling, making holes and then filling the dirt in, making the hole, fill dirt in, just so people could work. Do you think we'll see that?
I think, that's the smartest thing we could do in terms of we need infrastructure repair. There's bridges. We've been talking about this for the last 10 years, right? That there's infrastructure that needs to be built upon. And it's time. Take the time. Let's build a high-speed rail system. Let's build the things that we know we need. But of course, there's so much politics, that plays into, a lot of these civil things that we need to do. But I can't see any reason why the government wouldn't take this opportunity. Since you got to put the money out anyway, you might as well get some work on the back end, make the American populace feel good, feel like they're back to work. I hope these kind of things actually do come to the table and they start feeling it, because pumping money into air travel, it's not going to work because we ain't going to have nowhere to go. Right? As soon as America opens up and everybody's freaking out because we're America and we're not locked down, they're not going to let our planes fly in, without a 14-day lockdown. So this international air travel, it's not coming back for a minute,
I actually see this New Deal thing really as a good compromise, because I think that, it's funny because in January, when there was CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee, there was a big sign in front that said, democracy versus socialism, right? Of course, giving this money out is socialism. But I
Right.
think this would be a good compromise between Republican and Democrats, because it's not like we're just sending people checks or we're guaranteeing 75% of their payroll like they're doing in other countries. You actually have to work for it. And I
Right.
think that could work out really well as a political solution.
Absolutely. Socialism is bad. It's horrible until you have to take that money and cover your capitalism. Then
Right.
socialism's good.
Right. And that's basically what we're doing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you have all these forgivable loans and things like that. And it was
Right.
interesting. I was writing this morning about it, and people are worried about the fraud. And something, there's going to be fraud, but
There's going to be fraud.
98% of it will get in the hands of good people. We'll worry about the 2% later. You can't design a program for the exceptions.
Yeah.
One of the other things I thought about was, should we just, instead of having these small business owners have to apply through banks, which, anytime you have banks come between small business owners' money and them, what could possibly go wrong, right? But why not just have the government send checks based on their 2019 net profit or something like that? They already have that information. Just send the darn checks.
Yeah.
And get money in the hands of people instead of having to go through banks and all these maturations, because
Right.
time is wasting if we're going to have a speedy recovery. If not, it's going to go on for a long time because unemployment is like this.
So these are the conversations we should be having,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, right now we're so busy pointing fingers, and trust me, the administration was lax on its response medically, right? And trying to get in front of this disease, but they could really, really expedite this other side of it, like you're saying, with getting the money into the hands of the businesses and the people that need it. Do it. Just do it.
Right.
You know?
And we shouldn't ignore the sole proprietors, the independent contractors, because so much of the country are gig workers, right?
Yes.
And a lot of these folks, they're requiring all this income tax 1040, Schedule C, this and this. A lot of people don't have that information and aren't going to put that together in order to get there. They couldn't qualify for about $20,000. That's not going to work because so many of us are not that organized, and
Right.
we still need the money to cover our rent and our food.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think people really think about the downstream impact of gig working, right? And I didn't think about this, but a friend of mine has a house cleaning service,
Mhm.
right? And I was like, okay, so you go around and clean people's house. But he's like, well, basically, yeah, that was where we started, but we were a service for people that were renting Airbnb.
Mhm.
And so they were dependent on gig workers.
Right.
So there's such downstream impact to gig working that we're not even considering. And we need to get these guys, because that was really that was part of the reason why the economy was doing so good, why unemployment was so low.
Right.
Because people could drive an Uber. They could go and pick up Lime bikes and recharge them. All of that has stopped.
Right.
And these guys, like you said, are not long-term, been in it for years, filing, independent LLC business stuff, all the stuff they asked me for, because I did fill mine out. I was like, okay, I got my stuff together. But literally, if you asked me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had it together.
It's interesting because, again, these people are piecing together their lives, right? They're piecing together their economies, their work. And this stuff has now really faded away. Unless you're Zoom or you're Amazon, probably you've got to have been affected by this. We don't realize that people staying in homes and not going out, what a big effect it has. But, I was looking at what the sole proprietor had to send to the government for PPP, or the independent contractor. They want Schedule C. They wanted all of your 1099s
Yes.
together, right?
Right.
It's like, WTF, come on, it's not really gonna happen. They're putting barriers in place of people actually getting the money, and
Yeah.
$1,200 that every American is gonna get if you make less than, I don't know, $150,000 a year or $100,000 a year ain't gonna cut it, especially if it doesn't arrive till September.
Yeah, that's nothing. And here's the other thing, guys. We can talk about putting America back to work, quote, right? But when we're going to put kids back in school,
Right.
because some people can't go to work when they have no place for their kids to go during the day. So that's going to impact. So there's so many factors. It's not just about, hey, okay, go back out. It's just not going to happen that fast.
I have a client that runs a manufacturing company, and he's seeing 25% of his minimum wage industrial workers call off, not because they're sick, but there's no one to take care of their kids.
Yeah.
And so what are you doing now? Now what we're hearing is that a lot of schools aren't going to reopen the rest of the semester.
Yeah, they're gone.
September.
Till September. Yeah, they're gone. I mean, that's pretty much a lost cause. But out of it, this will be the solutions. I mean, out of the last downturn, that's where we got the Ubers of the world, right? That's when they popped up. And we're going to see industries pop up that we didn't even think about prior to this. And one of them probably will be what to do with our kids while we work, other than, what we used to do. I think there will be some good ways for that to happen, hopefully. So,
John, two more questions for you. Do you
sure.
think that this will, Bernie Sanders, of course, during the election was pushing for universal health care. And now Joe Biden has come out and said that Medicare for anybody 60 or higher. And I hope that happens because I'm 60, right? Do you think that this will push the country towards universal health care of some form, or in a year and a half, we're just going to have a very short memory?
Well, I mean, Americans do have a very short memory.
Really?
But I would hope so, because we would have way better control over the next pandemic. I think for us, we will forget somewhat, but we will always remember this time in our history.
Mm-hmm.
This will impact us. Right now, we're so in it that we can't really look back in remembrance. And I think when we start looking back in remembrance on this time in history, it will change a lot about the way we think about healthcare in America. Absolutely.
Seth Godin is calling it Generation C, Generation Coronavirus, right?
Yeah.
Gen X or Gen Y. Last question I wanted to ask you. You follow this thing every single night, right? You're looking at the COVID, the coronavirus figures. Do you think that the curve is flattening in the United States, or that's just hopeful? I've been sitting in this apartment for almost a month.
No, absolutely. Well, here's the thing. You don't know what the curve is until you look back at it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's the real point. So I've heard people say, well, they said it was going to be 100,000. Now it's only going to be 60,000. I'm like, absolutely. That's because you're working on projections. Right. That's why the hurricane could say it's going to hit Miami, and then 3 hours later it hits Jacksonville. Right. It's based on the best estimates that we have right now. So the curve is based on estimation. And until we look back, we really won't know when the curve, hit, right? Because we think that it's going to hit this weekend. It could have already hit. This whole weekend we could go down. So the deal is, though, America is going to have these waves of different parts of the country.
Right.
And so, yes, the most are happening right now in the biggest city, one of the biggest cities in the world.
Right.
So once that's off the table, it's going to look like small beans. But my city in Atlanta is still setting massive records. We just crossed, 1,000 for our deaths. So I don't know when this wave is going to hit for the entire country. It's probably based on what's going on in New York, right? Yeah. But once Chicago plays out, New Orleans plays out, Atlanta, Texas, things like that, we're gonna. That's why I think we're gonna be in this for a little bit longer than we expect.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, John, thanks so much for joining us. Where can people tune in every single night to get the latest on what is going on?
Oh, that's funny. You have to be on Facebook, and you have to be on a group called Watching the Virus. So you do that, or you just go to facebook.com/colderice. COLDERICE. That's my personal timeline. I always post it on there as well.
And you don't have to have had the virus to get in the group.
No,
right?
you please don't.
You just want to do it. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Barry.